Good day everyone, we are the group 4 and today we will be discussing about the light and lenses. Ano ba ang lens? Ang lens ay isang optical unit na ikinakabit sa camera para makakuha ng mas malinaw na litrato at ang light naman ay isang form of electromagnetic impulse of the same family as radio, Hertzian wave, heat, infrared, ultraviolet, X-rays, and cosmic rays. Principles of light. Light or visible light is electromagnetic radiation of a wavelength na nakikita ng ating mga mata na umaabot hanggang 400 to 700 nanometers. In the context of science, ang light ay minsan ginagamit sa pagtukoy sa buong electromagnetic spectrum. Three primary properties of light are intensity or brightness, frequency or wavelength, and polarization or direction of the wave oscillation. Source of light. Light comes from many sources. Light for photography can be obtained either from natural light or artificial light. Ang natural light ay mga sun, flame, white hot metals, stars na naglalabas ng radiation sa loob ng nakikitang spectrum ay tinatawag na luminous object. Ang luminous object sa Tagalog ay maliwanag na bagay. All other object called non-luminous because nag-reflect ito ng light na galing sa maliwanag na bagay. Artificial light, any light which is produced through human agency such as all forms of electric light, magnesium light, etc. Ang mga artificial light ay candle light, fluorescent light, incandescent lamp, neon light, laser light, at mercury. Light can exhibit properties of both waves and particles. These properties refer to as wave particle duality, the study of light known as optics is an important research area in modern physics. Light is a radiation. Radiation is the transmission of heat of light, especially from one body to another body. When atom in a light source is shaped physically, naglalabas ito ng photon. Ang photon ay electromagnetic radiation, which behave like a wave and at the same time like a particle. Light is a particular type of electromagnetic radiation that can be seen and sensed by human eye, but this energy exists at the wide range of wavelength. The micron is the basic unit for measuring the wavelength of electromagnetic waves. The shortest waves are tinatawag na gamma rays, which have a wavelength to 10 to 6 micron or less. At ang the longest waves naman ay tinatawag na radio waves, which have wavelength of many kilometers. The rays visible consist of the narrow portion of the eye spectrum from 0. micron blue to 0.7 micron red. The electromagnetic spectrum. The electromagnetic spectrum is a continuum of all electromagnetic waves arranged according to the frequency and wavelength. The sun, the earth, and other bodies radiate electromagnetic energy of varying wavelength. Electromagnetic energy passes through space at the speed of light. Through space at the speed of light in the form of sinusoidal waves. The wavelength of a wave. The wavelength is the distance mula sa tuktok hanggang sa kabilang tuktok. Good day everyone, we are the group 4 and today we will be discussing about the light and lenses. Ano ba ang lens? Ang lens ay isang optical unit na ikinakabit sa camera para makakuha ng mas malinaw na litrato. At ang light naman ay isang form of electromagnetic impulse of the same family as radio, Hertzian wave, heat, infrared, ultraviolet, X-rays, and cosmic rays. Principles of light. Light or visible light is electromagnetic radiation of a wavelength na nakikita ng ating mga mata na umaabot hanggang 400 to 700 nanometers. In the context of science, ang light ay minsan ginagamit sa pagtukoy sa buong electromagnetic spectrum. Three primary properties of light are intensity or brightness, frequency or wavelength, and polarization or direction of the wave oscillation. Source of light. Light comes from many sources. Light for photography can be obtained either from natural light or artificial light. Ang natural light ay mga sun, flame, white hot metals, stars na naglalabas ng radiation sa loob ng nakikitang spectrum ay tinatawag na luminous object. Ang luminous object sa Tagalog ay maliwanag na bagay. All other object called non-luminous because nag-reflect ito ng light na galing sa maliwanag na bagay. Artificial light, any light which is produced through human agency such as all forms of electric light, magnesium light, etc. Ang mga artificial light ay candle light, fluorescent light, incandescent lamp, neon light, laser light, at mercury. Light can exhibit properties of both waves and particles. These properties referred to as wave particle duality, the study of light known as optics is an important research area in modern physics. Light is a radiation. Radiation is the transmission of heat of light, especially from one body to another body. When atom in a light source is placed physically, naglalabas ito ng photon. Ang photon ay electromagnetic radiation, which behave like a wave and at the same time like a particle. Light is a particular type of electromagnetic radiation that can be seen and sensed by human eye, but this energy exists at the wide range of wavelength. The micron is the basic unit for measuring the wavelength of electromagnetic waves. The shortest waves are tinatawag na gamma rays, which have a wavelength to 10 to 6 micron or less. At ang the longest waves naman ay tinatawag na radio waves, which have wavelength of many kilometers. The rays visible consist of the narrow portion of the spectrum from 0.0 micron blue to 0.7 micron red. The electromagnetic spectrum. The electromagnetic spectrum is a continuum of all electromagnetic waves arranged according to the frequency and wavelength. The sun, the earth, and other bodies radiate electromagnetic energy of varying wavelength. Electromagnetic energy passes through space at the speed of light. Through space at the speed of light in the form of sinusoidal waves. The wavelength of a wave. The wavelength is the distance mula sa tuktok hanggang sa kabilang tuktok.
Electromagnetic radiation. In terms of classical theory, the flows of energy at the inversal speed of light through materials or mediums in the form of the electric and magnetic fields that make up electromagnetic waves, such as radio waves, visible light, and gamma rays. In such a wave, time-varying electric and magnetic fields are mutually linked with each other at the right angles. Ang electromagnetic is ang electromagnetic radiation, EMR, isang anyo ng nagliliwanag na enerhiya na inilalabas ng ilang mga proseso ng elektromagnetiko. Sinasabi na kaya nabubuo ang electromagnetic radiation ay nagkakaroon ng mga proseso. Measure of light expressed in nanometer and M. Ang nagsisimula ito sa 0.0 to 30. Yun ay tinatawag na X-ray. Then 30 to 400 is the ultraviolet. Then 400 to 700 is the visible light. Then 700 to 1000 nm is the infrared light. Then 1000 up and or pataas sa 1000, yun ay tinatawag na nating radio light wave. Visible light waves are the only electromagnetic waves we can see. We see this wave as the colors of the rainbow. Each color has different wavelength. Red has the longest wavelength and the violet has the shortest wavelength. When all the waves seen together, they are seen as a white light. When white light shines through a prism, the white light is broken apart into colors of the visible light spectrum. Water vapor is the atmosphere can also break apart wavelengths creating a rainbow. Here's the illustration ng the electromagnetic spectrum. First, makikita natin sa downward niya, makikita natin ng Y-rays, X-rays, and the ultraviolet. Then, sa other side niya naman is the near and mid-infrared. Then, thermal infrared, the microwave, and the TV radio. Then, sa upper part naman nila, doon na makikita natin yung wavelength, both wavelength and the measure nila. Then, sa middle naman, makikita yung visible. Sa visible, makikita yung ultraviolet, blue, green, red, IR na color. Which is, sa UV and blue, makikita yung number of measure na 0.4, sa blue, green, 0.5, then sa green, red, 0.6, then sa red and IR is the 0.7. Then, sa each color in a rainbow correspond to a different wavelength to electromagnetic spectrum. Ito yung example ng electromagnetic spectrum. First light, then pag pumasok ito sa prism, dito lalabas mo o makikita yung infrared. Then down sa downward ng infrared is the ultraviolet. And between infrared and ultraviolet, makikita yung different color which is the red, yellow, green, blue, green, blue, and the violet. Then, makikita yung visible spectrum or ang 700 mu, 590 mu, 500 and 400 ay yung visible spectrum number nila. Or yun. Then, sa top and bottom ng mga colors ay invisible. Kumbaga, wala ka na makikita. Then, wavelength of the electromagnetic spectrum. Ito yung, dito makikita yung panginginig o daloy o kung paano gumagana yung mga kulay. Sa red is the smoothest part. Then, orange is the medyo nawawala ng pagiging smooth niya. Then, sa yellow, wala siyang nakalagay. Sa green, yon bumibilis na. Then, sa blue, lalong nagiging mabilis. Then, sa next, is mabilis na. Then, sa violet ay pinakamabilis ng panginginig. Basic principle. Light is a radiant energy. Other forms of radiant energy are and each other differs wavelength, heat rays, X-ray, radio wave. Next is the radiant energy can be identified by its wavelength and listed on a number line called the electromagnetic spectrum. Then, light travels through a vacuum and through the air at a speed of 186,000 miles per second but can be slowed by dense mediums such as a glass or water. Dito sa principle na to, sinasabi na ang light kapag nag-travel siya sa air, bumibili siya ng 186,000 miles per second. But kapag dumaan naman yung light, nag-travel naman yung light sa glass or water, mas nagiging mabagal yung daloy ng light. Next is the portion of electromagnetic spectrum that affects the sense of sight in humans is called the visible spectrum and is limited to radiation of extremely short wavelength. Next is the radiation of light are seen as colors, the longest of which is seen as red, the shortest seen as violet. Dito kanina sinasabi na ang longest color na makikita natin sa radiation of light is the red and the shortest naman is the violet. Radiation of light lying adjustment to red but outside the visible spectrum is infrared ray. Next is radiation of light lying adjustment to violet but outside the visible spectrum is the ultraviolet. Radiation of light, dito sinasabi na sa loob ay makikita yung violet. Then sa outside ng visible spectrum naman is yung ultraviolet ray na. When all wavelength of the visible spectrum are radiated by light source or equal amount, the mixture is seen as a white light. Yung kapag ang wavelength daw ay sa wavelength of the visible spectrum and radiation light ay equal amount, ang makikita mo is the white light. The absence of light is called black. Next is the whenever any wavelength a light is present in greater abundance than other, the resulting light is colored. Wavelength of a wave is the distance from peak to an adjustment through in a wave. The last is the number of waves per unit of time. Importance of light in photography. Ito yung importance ng light sa photography. Things are seen by our naked eye when light shines on them. See things when light rays are reflected from into our eyes. We can take a picture when light rays from a subject reach our camera lens. Without light, image may not recorded in the film of the camera by the manipulation of the lens aperture. Dito, in the short term naman, sinasabi na ang light ay mahalaga kapag nag-save or nagre-record ka ng isang image. Kasi kapag walang light, hindi magre-record yung mga image. Which is manipulation of the light of the lens in aperture. Objects or medium which affect the speed of light. Light travels into atmosphere in straight direction of speed of 186,000 miles per second. Then the speed of the light slowed when it gets contact some objects medium following affects or mediums. The following affects the speed of light. The first is the transparent object. object or mediums which merely slow the speed of light but allow heat to pass freely. Ito yung halimbawa, example nito, ito yung object, then ito yung light. Then dadaan yung light. Hindi yung light tatago siya freely. Then ang example nito is the plastic materials and the transparent clothes. Ito yung mga materials na kung saan tumatagos yung light. Then sa paki-objects naman, object which divert or absorb light but allowed no light to pass through it. Ito yung mga object na hindi tinatagos. Halimbawa, ito yung object, ito yung light. Then dadaan yung parating yung light. Ina-absorb lang ng object yung light. Then hindi naman to hindi tatagos yung light dito. Then the example ng mga object na to is the metal, stone, woods. Yun yung mga object na hindi tinatagosan ng ilaw.
Opaque objects either absorb or divert light rays. Absorption of light is the process where certain materials convert light energy into another form of energy, usually heat or temperature. The use of black painted background, for example, is used by the photographer to subtract or reduce light so that it does not bounce itself around in an undesirable way. Diversion is the change in the direction of light waves that strike the surface of any subject that creates reflection, either by specular or diffuse reflection. When light rays get in contact with opaque objects, light rays are reflected. Diffuse reflected light occur when light rays get in contact with the rough objects. Medium and specular reflected light when it gets in the contact of smooth objects or medium. In taking photographs, the subject must face the source of light so that light will bounce from the subject to the lens of the camera and will be captured by the use of shutter. 3. Translucent objects. Objects which allow to pass through them in such a way that the outline of the light source is not clearly visible. For example, glass, ground glass, old paper, water. How light change direction. General principle. Light travels in straight line but changes the direction of the light wave when it comes in contact with the different objects. The change in the direction of light wave may either be through reflection or refraction. 1. Reflection is a change of direction of light waves which occurs whenever light waves comes in contact with the surface of an object subject but does not allow the wave to pass through it. The three ways in which light ray may change direction. Reflection is the most important to the photographer. And then in the direct reflection, the light rays will bounce from a smooth surface at the same angle at which they hit. The mirror intensity of the direct reflection will mirror the intensity of the light source. There are two ways of how light rays are reflected. A. Diffuse reflected light. When a light ray comes with rough surfaces, diffuse reflection occurs when light from a source is equally reflected in all directions by the surface onto which it strikes. Diffuse reflection are the same intensity no matter what angle or direction they are viewed from. A diffuse light source has low contrast because its rays hit the subject from many different angles. B. Specular reflected light. When light rays comes in contact with smooth surface, such as mirror, it produces glare. Glare seen, glare seen on the mirror of the surface of a body of water is known as polarized direct reflection. 2. Refraction is the bending of or redirection of light waves when passing obliquely from one medium to a medium of different density. Glass have refractive properties and what are manipulated within photographic lenses in order to focus an image onto the film or digital imaging sensor. 3. Prism is a solid dispersing light. It is transparent polygonal solid object that with flat faces and usually a triangular cross-section used for separating white light into a spectrum of colors. Light rays bend twice when passing through a prism. It usually a glass with refracting surfaces forming an angle to each other. It changes a path of light ray disperse white light into its component colors. Any subject or will act on light that strikes with it whether through refraction, absorption, reflection, or combination of all three. With the photography, the light is controlled in order to achieve optimum balanced exposure.
Significance of lenses to photography. A lens is a piece of transparent material with with at least one curved surface which refracts or bends light ray. Coming from an object, it is simply a piece of a glass that has been constructed so that all the light rays which pass through it are bent toward or away from one point, which is determined by the maker of the lens. Lenses are usually made of a glass or plastic, and they have a special property which can give good results. The photographer should choose a type of lens which has a good resolution. Property of lens, which refers to resolving power, such as retaining fine lines without blurring and another to achieve good result of the image. There are only two kinds of lens common to photography, and these are the convex and concave lenses, or the combination of it. When light ray passes through a certain type of lens, the light ray either converge or diverge, so the photographer should be careful in choosing the characteristics one that is able to converge light rays in order to have a good focus. Narrow and crowded spaces. Normal lenses which are commonly used in regular photography. Telephoto, fixed lenses used in photography, long or far distance. Zoom lenses which are variable, it can photograph from the shortest to longest distance. Macro lenses that enlarge object and magnify from 1 to 9 times. Micro used to photograph minute objects and magnify and, and enlarge from 10 times up. Significance of lenses and light rays to photography. For any lens, the focus point is not the same. Subject is from the lens. The closer the focus, 20 feet away, the farther the subject is from, while the closer focus will be to the lens subject more than 600 feet away from a lens, however, will focus at very nearly the same distance from the lens. distance of 600 feet or more are called infinity. These conditions are affected by the focal length of the lens and intensity of light. Focal length of the lens, the property of the lens that will focus the subject at infinity at a certain distance from the lens.
Intensity of light, which is the strength or quantity of light that reaches the subject, implies that the light source at any given distance from a subject will lighten the subject with an intensity than the same light source moved to twice of the distance from the subject. This concept is governed by the inverse square law, which states that the intensity of the diffuse light reflected is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the light source and the subject. Understanding behavior or light is prerequisite to understanding how to control the light. When taking photographs, temperature and contrast are the three important properties that should be given the utmost concern of the photographer. The inverse square law is the law of optics, which states that the intensity of light falling upon a subject varies inversely as the square of the distance of that object from the source of light. How lenses affect photographic images. In photography, the result of image is affected sometimes by the defect in lens property, especially in shape. In capturing wavelengths of light known as lens aberration, which is defined as follows. Lens aberration is an anomaly of the lens which causes distortion of the subject due to lens curvature, barrel distortion, pincushion or color, chromatic aberration. At the edges of the lens, New York Institute of Photography 1981 defines aberration is an optical distortion of an image caused by lens. Some of the lens aberration are as follows. Chromatic aberration is caused by lens having a different refractive index for different wavelengths of light. A chromatic lens, a lens corrected to bring together the yellow and blue-violet rays so that no color fingers will appear in the final image. Most photographic lenses, except the meniscus and periscopic lenses, are of this type. However, the achromatic lens is more highly corrected for all colors. Lens curvature and curved mirrors. Optical systems, the deviation of light rays cause image of the object to be blurred. Parallax is an apparent displacement of an object when viewed at two different angles. Visual three-dimensional depth is perceived, or when the person looking at the object changes position, apparent change of position. Astigmatism, a fault of lens caused by slight non-uniformity of refraction which prevents a sharp focus being obtained simultaneously upon both vertical and horizontal lines. A spherical lens, a lens in which one surface differs from the true spherical shape, has a certain advantage in the control of optical aberration, especially in reducing spherical aberration. The absence of practical method of mass producing a spherical element has retarded the popularity of such lens.